Across America, countless murders remain unsolved. Some fade quietly into the shadows of history, but others refuse to die. These are the cases that haunt investigators, where every lead ends in silence, and every clue deepens the mystery. The FBI has spent decades chasing answers, yet justice remains just out of reach. What you're about to hear are two such cases, stories of families torn apart, young lives stolen, and questions that remain unanswered to this day. It was the evening of February 12, 2000, when the Denver Police Department received a frantic 911 call from a neighbor. A family of three, a husband, wife, and their young daughter, had not been seen for days. Their car remained in the driveway, mail was piling up, and their dog could be heard barking nonstop from inside the house. The neighbor, uneasy, decided to call for a welfare check. What officers would discover behind that quiet suburban facade would become one of the most haunting unsolved murders in modern Colorado history. The house, located in a modest neighborhood outside Denver, showed no signs of forced entry. The front door was locked. The windows were shut tight. When police entered, the atmosphere felt heavy, like the air itself carried the memory of violence. In the living room, they found the three family members dead. The husband lay near the hallway, the wife on the couch, and the child at the bottom of the stairs. Their injury suggested blunt force trauma, but no weapon was ever found. Detectives expected to find chaos, broken locks, ransacked rooms, stolen valuables. Instead, everything appeared strangely orderly. The family's wallets, jewelry, and electronics were untouched. But one detail sent chills down the spine of even the most seasoned investigators. Written across the living room wall, in jagged red letters, was a cryptic message. The words were smeared, difficult to read, as if the killer had rushed. To some officers, it looked like "We see you." To others, it resembled "No escape." The handwriting was irregular. Forensic analysts later determined the message had been written with a mixture of the victim's blood and some kind of red ink. It was unlike anything investigators had encountered before. The FBI soon joined the case, bringing in profilers and forensic experts. Hundreds of leads were chased down. Neighbors were questioned repeatedly, but no one recalled hearing screams, no unusual activity, nothing that might suggest an intruder. The crime scene suggested the killer may have been someone the family knew, someone they trusted enough to let inside voluntarily. For months, the Denver media covered every development. "Suburban slaughter," read one headline. Another, more chilling, "The message on the wall." Tips poured in, but each one ended in a dead end. Suspects ranged from disgruntled co-workers to estranged relatives, yet none could be tied conclusively to the crime. By 2002, the case had grown cold. Evidence bags filled with household objects, DNA samples, and the bloodied wall photograph were filed away in an FBI case vault. Every few years, a new lead would resurface: an anonymous letter claiming to know the killer, a prison inmate boasting of involvement, a supposed witness who remembered a suspicious figure that night. Yet none of it ever led to an arrest. Even today, more than 20 years later, the Denver family murder remains unsolved. Former FBI agents have admitted off the record that the case still troubles them deeply. "It's like the house swallowed the truth," one retired investigator once said. "We had a message, but no one to read it to us." For the families of the victims, closure has never come. Every anniversary, fresh flowers appear outside the home. Nobody knows who leaves them. Maybe a relative, maybe someone who still carries guilt, or maybe, chillingly, the killer himself, returning to the scene of the crime to remind everyone that some secrets stay buried. 1 year before the Denver murders, on October 3, 1999, a tragedy unfolded in a small town just outside Boston, Massachusetts. The victim, a 21-year-old college student named Emily Rhodes. She was studying literature at a nearby university known for her bright smile and sharp wit. Friends described her as ambitious, independent, and deeply private. Emily failed to show up for class on a Monday morning. When she didn't answer calls, a roommate who lived in another building decided to check in. What she discovered triggered a police investigation that has baffled investigators for decades. Inside Emily's modest brick apartment, there were no signs of forced entry. The door was locked from the outside, suggesting the killer had either a key or Emily had willingly let them in. Nothing was stolen. Her laptop, wallet, and jewelry remained untouched. The detail that has haunted investigators ever since was found in the bedroom. On Emily's pillow lay a single red rose. Perfectly placed, the stem trimmed clean, as though it had been set there. Deliberately, the crime scene otherwise looked ordinary. Emily's textbooks were stacked neatly on her desk. A half-finished cup of tea sat on the kitchen counter. One of her shoes was lying near the foot of her bed, suggesting she may have been in the middle of changing clothes when she was attacked. But how had the killer entered without drawing attention? And why leave behind such a deliberate, almost theatrical symbol? The Boston police brought in the FBI within days. Interviews with classmates, professors, neighbors, and even ex-boyfriends yielded no suspects. One neighbor claimed she saw a man in a dark coat standing outside the building the night before the murder, but she couldn't provide a clear description. Another neighbor insisted she heard a faint knock on Emily's door late that night, followed by silence. Speculation ran wild in the local press. Some believed the rose was the killer's calling card, the sign of someone who wanted recognition. Others thought it symbolized an intimate connection, perhaps a rejected lover or a stalker who had been watching Emily for weeks. The FBI investigated known stalkers in the area, but again, no evidence ever matched. In 2001, DNA testing was conducted on the rose stem and the apartment. Results came back inconclusive. There was trace male DNA present, but not enough to match to anyone in the FBI's database at the time. Detectives revisited the evidence in 2010 with new technology, but the results remained frustratingly incomplete. Over the years, countless theories have surfaced. Some point to a fellow student obsessed with Emily. Others believe it was a stranger who fixated on her after a chance encounter. A chilling theory suggests the rose was not left by the killer at all, but by someone who found her body before the police and chose not to come forward. To this day, the Boston Rose case remains unsolved. The FBI classifies it as an open investigation. Every few years, the case file is reopened with new technology, but the answers remain elusive. For Emily's parents, now elderly, the lack of closure is a wound that never heals. What makes the Boston Rose case so haunting is not only the senseless loss of a young life, but the cruel poetry of the crime scene. A red rose, left like a signature, sits forever in the minds of investigators. Was it love? Was it hate? Or was it both? 24 years later, the case still lingers in Boston's memory, a reminder that even the most ordinary lives can end in the most extraordinary mysteries. 2. Families. 2 tragedies, 2 cases still unsolved. In Denver, a family murdered in their own home, a chilling message on the wall, and no suspect ever named. In Boston, a young student found lifeless in her apartment, a single red rose left as a haunting signature. Decades have passed. Forensic science has advanced. Investigators have retired. New agents have taken over. Yet these cases remain cold. Some say the answers are still out there, hidden in forgotten evidence or buried in someone's guilty conscience. Others believe the truth may never be known. But one thing is certain: until justice found, these murders will continue to haunt the FBI and remind us that behind every unsolved crime lies a story of lives forever unfinished.